All right, so we're going to continue talking about quadratic functions, and I wanted to give you guys the formal definition of a parabola. So my definition of a parabola would be that it's a U-shaped graph. It can either open up, open down, and we'll kind of go over that a little bit more of kind of when to know whether it's going to open up or down. So if it were to look like this first example here of a suspension bridge, this would look like a smiley face. And then it has a minimum value. So it'll start at the minimum value and all the other ordered pairs will be above it. If we were to look at, let's say, the St. Louis arch, the St. Louis arch has a maximum value, and in this case, looks like a frowny face. So we call this point where it's the highest maximum. So you have these two types of graphs, and I'll show you in a minute exactly how to tell if it's going to open up or down without even having to graph it. The next vocab word that you guys need to know is what that maximum minimum point is called, and that's called a vertex. That's just the point at which all the other ordered pairs are either going to be below it or above it, and then also it's going to be where we call the axis of symmetry. So let's just look at a couple examples of just trying to figure out if we have a maximum value or a minimum value. So if you look at choice A has a maximum value, so it has a max, because all the other ordered pairs are below it. If we look at B, on the other hand, now we have a minimum value, because all the other ordered pairs are above it. Right? So that's how easy it is by just looking at the graph to tell whether or not it has a maximum or minimum value. And then we have what's called axis symmetry. So with this example that I have here, you've got this equation here. Y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. So to find the vertex, we have to do a couple steps. And we're going to practice this for a little while so that way we know exactly how to identify the information that we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite this equation. And this is in standard form. So in standard form, x squared comes first, then bx, and then the value of c later. So we need to figure out what the values of a, b, and c are. So the value in front of x squared is going to end up being 1. So if there's no number written there, it's 1. The value of b will end up being negative 2. And then c in this case is negative 3. Okay. If the value of a is positive, that's when you get this U-shaped graph that looks like a smiley face. If a happens to be negative, that's when it flips and it all opens down. So you have the maximum value and all the other ordered pairs goes below. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take those values of a, b, and c, and we're going to use a and b to find the axis symmetry. So that's this line up here, this red line, all right? It's where we can fold our parabola in half and it'll be a matching image on either side. So we're going to take our value of b, which is negative 2, and we'll plug it in. So you have negative and then negative 2. I'm putting negative 2 in parentheses because we have to take the opposite later on. Then you have 2 times a, which is just 2 times 1. So then, now we just simplify. So you got negative and then a negative 2 in parentheses, so that makes that positive 2. Denominator becomes 2, so 2 divided by 2 is 1. This gives us our x value of our ordered pair. Next thing that we need to do is we need to take that 1 and we plug it into our original equation to figure out x. Right? So in this case, we're just going to do, we have y equals, and you'll have 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 3. 1 squared is 1, so we're just doing order of operations. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, minus 3. So 1 minus 2, negative 1. Negative 1 minus 3, negative 4. This is your y value. So when we write out our ordered pair for our vertex, you're going to have 1 comma negative 4. So let's do a couple more examples. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is always figure out what A, B, and C are, no matter what the equation is. When we look at A, we see that the number in front of x squared is 1, because there's no number there. 6 is my B value, and C is 7. I'm then going to take x equals negative b over 2a, and I'm going to plug in the value of b, which is 6, plug in the value of a, which is 1. Simplify, I get negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. Next step is to take that negative 3, and we're plugging it back into our original problem. So in this case, we're going to have y equals negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 7. Negative 3 squared is 9, and the reason I'm putting these negative numbers or any of these numbers in parentheses is because I want to make sure that I'm squaring correctly, I'm watching my signs, and I'm not making errors as I'm going through. So negative 3 squared is 9. Then we're going to have minus 18, because 6 times negative 3 is negative 18, plus 7. So then I do 9 minus 18, which gives us negative 9, plus 7 is negative 2. I use these two values I just found, and now I'm going to write my ordered pair, which is going to end up being negative 3, negative 2. All right, and we're going to kind of slowly work up to being able to do all of these steps. But on a quiz, this is what you're going to have to know how to do. Then if we look at our second example, again, we're going to figure out the values of A, which is 2, B is negative 5, and C is negative 7. Then we're going to figure out our x value. So we have negative b over 2a. I'm going to plug in negative 5 in for b, and then the bottom of my fraction is going to end up being 2 times 2. Okay. So now I have 5 over 4. If I reduce that down, that is just 1.25. Okay. Now you're going to plug it in for the value of y. Right. So we're going to take y. We're going to do 2 times 1.25 squared minus 5 times 1.25 minus 7. Okay. First thing we're going to do, go back to PEMDAS. You're going to square 1.25. So with that, I'm actually going to use the 5/4 as my kind of answer to work with, because I can easily take this fraction and square it, because it's just 5 over 4 times 5 over 4. This ends up being 25 over 16, because I'm doing 5 and 5 and then 4 times 4. Then down here, I'm just going to do 2 times 25 over 16 minus, if we've got 5 times 1.25, that ends up being 25 over 4, and then we minus 7. Okay. Next step, I'm just going to multiply. So I'm going to do a few things here. So 2 and 16, reduce that to 2. This will be 1. That'll be 8, because 16 divided by 2 is 8. Then I have minus 25 over 4 minus 7. I'm going to change all of my fractions so that way they have common denominators. And I'm going to make everything an 8. So to make a 4 and 8, I'm going to have to multiply by 2. Okay. So that'll end up being 50 over 8. And my 7, I'm going to do 7 times 8, which is 56 over 8, because 56 divided by 8 is going to give us 7. So now that the bottom of our fraction is the same, we're going to then subtract the tops. So you have 25 minus 50 plus 56, all over 8. So 25 minus 50, negative 25, plus 56, so 25 plus 56, you're going to have positive 31 over 8. even though it's messy, it's still doable. And you've got your ordered pair of 1.25 and then 31/8, or you can find the decimal for that. Okay, so we'll do one more example. So again, we're going to try to figure out values of A, B, and C. So value of A is -1, B is 8, and C is 1. Okay. So we need to figure out x. So x equals negative b, which is be -8 over 2 times -1. This becomes -8 over -2, which is 4. Take the 4, plug it into our original equation. So now you've got -4 squared plus 8 times 4 plus 1. So you'll have -16, because first we do 4 squared, you get 16, times it by -1, multiply by -1, listening to you guys too much talk, and then plus 32 plus 1. So -16 plus 32 gives us 16 plus 1 is 17. So the ordered pair is going to be 4, 17. Okay. Now comes the fun part. So what happens is you're going to have this middle value. So let's say you have 4 and you're 17. This is going to end up being your maximum value because your first term is negative. So it means it's going to have a highest point and then all the points are below it. So if we were to do a rough sketch, something like this. So what you do is you end up doing, you pick 2 numbers that are above it and 2 numbers that are below it. So if I plug in 2 into this problem, you'll have -2 squared plus 8 times 2 plus 1. So you'll have -4 plus 16 plus 1. So this ends up being -4 plus 16, positive 12 plus 1 is 13. If we do the same thing with 1, you'll have -1 plus 8 plus 1. Oops. And so that ends up being positive 8. And any of the numbers, if you go back and forth, if we plug in 5, you'll get 13. If you plug in 6, you'll get 8. So it's this mirror image for the y values. So then you just go through and you kind of, with this I'm just going to guesstimate a little bit because, and then my graph isn't big enough. So it'll look like this. U-shaped graph going down with a maximum value of 417.